and then all of a sudden 20 or 30% of the people in my region got laid off. It really shakes your confidence and it leaves you wondering, wow, even if I'm doing great at my job and I'm doing the right things, I can still be laid off at a moment's notice. Don't do something you don't enjoy. People care a lot less about other people than you think. They have their own problems and their own lives that they're dealing with.
Hi everyone, I'm Crystal.
Hi, I'm Hazel.
Hi, I'm Nicholas.
Yes, today we're very excited because we have Nicholas on the podcast and he's going to share with us a lot more about side hustles, side projects, and how he takes that on while keeping his full-time job. Hello, Nicholas.
Hi. Nice to see you.
Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yes, so let's get straight into it. You have quite a lot of side projects that you do, right? Side hustles. And maybe you want to walk us through that, how you maintain that full-time job while you have some of these side hustles.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't exactly call them side hustles because I'm not trying to make income from it. They're more side projects or passion projects. So I write a weekly newsletter on LinkedIn. I have a podcast where I talk to people like entrepreneurs, chefs, creatives, athletes, and learn about how they got to where they are, where they're going, and where they want to go to next. But these are all interesting to me, and they're like fun ways to build my skills and build my personal brand on the side. They're not something I'm trying to make money off of, or I'm not trying to like move away from my full-time job to be my own boss or that sort of thing.
Yeah, you love your job in marketing.
Yes,
Right.
yeah. I'm happy doing that and seeing talented people around me and working together as a team for a greater goal, but I don't want to only be stuck in the world of my job.
Yeah. So you have a huge backstory as to why you got started. Maybe you walk us through that.
I would say that I have on and off writing and blogs and this sort of thing for quite a while, but probably the catalyst was being laid off in 2023. So it was a very out of the blue kind of layoff. Company was doing good, the team was doing good, and then all of a sudden 20 or 30% of the people in my region got laid off. It wasn't just the marketing team, it was
totally
across,
unexpected.
Yeah, unexpected. I mean, of course, being laid off is getting more and more common, unfortunately, and I think it really shakes your confidence and it leaves you wondering, wow, I'm kind of at the whim of the powers that be. Even if I'm doing great at my job and I'm doing the right things, I can still be laid off at a moment's notice.
And Hazel, you have experience being laid off
Yeah,
as well.
because the word laid off, right, happened to myself as well as my husband. So for me, it's probably a long time ago. It's the second one for him, and the first one took him a long time to look for a job. Unexpected as well. It's not just him, it actually affects the family. It took him about 9 to 10 months before he found something. So that's one. The recent one, which was totally unexpected as well, came in fast and furious. And this time round, I think both of us were kind of like, okay, we've been through this. We know what is it like. The next question that I have for him was really, then how, right? So a few months before this, we had this conversation, I always remember this in the car, about him showing up on LinkedIn. So I said to him, I said, hey, a lot of people are talking about personal branding. What are you doing? Are you there? Because I took on a boot camp last year on showing up. So I've been writing every week. And
Writing on LinkedIn every week, specifically.
Yes, correct. Writing on LinkedIn every week, not a newsletter, just, my story. And he was looking at me, he's like, how do you waste your time? Why are you doing this? I said, I don't know. I found my passion, I guess. I enjoy telling stories through words. So I've been encouraging to do that. Fortunately or unfortunately, because of this layoff, I think that's something that clicked in his head. One day he said to me, can you check for me this story? What do you think? I'm like, great. Why don't you post it up? Right? And he started doing that. I think it's very much future-proving himself as well, rather than just quietly, something like this will happen anytime, especially at our age.
We cannot afford to stay under the radar in today's world.
Not now,
Right?
at all.
Yeah.
And part of the thing was for me is I was finally at a point in my career where I actually had a lot of connections and I had a lot of colleagues and business associates from big companies. And I think I had at least 5, but possibly up to 8 referrals to open roles, like real referrals, and nothing came from any of them. So I was like, wow, even
This was
kind of
after you were laid off.
After I was laid off.
How long did it take while you were trying to get a job?
I was quite lucky that it was not too long, about 2 months until I started the next role. But it was also a couple years ago. I think the market is getting more and more challenging. So during that time, I was, of course, applying for jobs and for interviews, but I felt that same instinct, not that I want to become an influencer or
Creator,
or become known as a marketing guru, but even if somebody is a recruiter or talent acquisition and comes to look at my LinkedIn, do I want them to just see the bare bones there, or
Correct.
should I be, because I do have expertise after X number of years in the industry, should I be sharing that and putting it on display instead of just having this 1 or 2 page CV or resume that
Just like your
defines
jobs
who I
and what
am.
you do,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So that actually was the catalyst that got you you into writing on LinkedIn, into starting a podcast?
There's a couple of things. So I think one other thing that we were talking about before is I don't like the traditional sense of networking where you go into a room and you get your little snacks and your glass of wine and you're supposed to talk to people and give out your name card. That was never a good experience for me. I'm also not native from Singapore, so I don't have like lots of school friends and army buddies and all this stuff. By this point in my career, I have a lot of ex-colleagues and people, but I found that I started volunteering with different organizations and working on stuff together, not just having a very shallow networking night or even going to a conference and networking during lunch and that sort of thing. And it wasn't necessarily exactly the people that I met there, but it was more of the ideas that were thrown around. And that was one of the big reasons for starting the podcast, is that I realized, wow, there's a lot of interesting people in Singapore that I don't know, and if I don't know them, probably a lot of people don't know about them. So that was why specifically I started the podcast. Selfishly, I wanted to learn more about these people and how their journey went and how their brains worked, but also I found that it was an interesting way to meet new people and to kind of make new connections with people.
And what do you gain from the podcast and writing?
I think a very tangible thing for me is actually, you may have found this recently, when you start writing, you actually clarifies the way you think a lot. Because you have to, sometimes if we're good at our jobs, we just do things and we don't really need to think about it so much. But it's like, I think there's a saying about when you teach something, then that's when you really, you really know how to explain it.
So if crystallize your thoughts a little bit.
Yes, exactly. So when you actually think about, okay, I have an idea for a topic, but you start writing and it starts coming out, and then you need to refine it, you need to do all these things. And so it actually clarifies your own thinking about the work that you do a lot as well. I think a lot of people have said it, but you have a personal brand whether you want to or not. Your personal brand is what other people think of you. So the question is, do you want to influence it? Do you want to have a say in what your personal brand is, or do you just want to let it be by your actions and your work?
To put yourself out there, I feel like there's a lot of resistance from people. They'll be like, yeah, I should do it, but like, what if my boss sees my post on LinkedIn? What if like my colleagues see that I'm like doing this like video and stuff like that, right? So how do you get over that initial fear of putting yourself out there?
Well, I actually have a friend who was recently asked by his company to not post things because they only want him to focus on work things. So that is a serious consideration you have to have. And I also have a wife who is these things top of mind. If it was only me, I probably would have been quite rash and just posted myself and not thought about it.
What does your wife do?
She's also in marketing.
Okay.
You can have her on the podcast.
Just in marketing, right?
Marketing?
Yes.
Okay.
She was quite good about saying, hey, you better do this the right way. Make sure you give your boss a heads up. Because you don't want anything to be misconstrued, that you're working on these things outside of the time that you should be working on company things. Recently I gave a lecture in US. I made sure to give them a heads up and say, hey, I might mention a couple of campaigns that we did. Is that all right to do? And this sort of thing. So there are cases when, unfortunately, LinkedIn may not be the best place for you to do things. I don't think everybody needs to like try to become a professional on LinkedIn. If you have an interest in building your skills and building your network, it could be on TikTok, it could be on Instagram. It's not like, oh, I think everybody has to go write a newsletter or post every day on LinkedIn. But my advice to people, if they have any of this sort of feeling of the need to be more visible and to be building something outside of their 9-to-5 job, you can find ways to do it. You don't have to be visible to all your colleagues and all your coworkers. You could do illustrations on Instagram where nobody would ever know who's behind the account.
And would you say like you have gotten like more job offers? Do you have more recruiters coming to you now that you have a podcast, you have a newsletter, and like you're more visible?
I think it's similar. I mean, I'm more senior in my career, so it's hard to say what has influenced that. I'm very happy where I am today. So
maybe you can like track like a month-on-month basis. Like I'm getting more now.
Look at all your data.
It's a measurement of my success.
Your KPI.
Yeah. The thing is, when I started the newsletter and the writing, that was during that time of settling into the new job. But by the time I started the podcast, that was, I think, a year after I already started the new job. And it was very much a personal desire to build something else and learn about these things. So I wouldn't expect or hope that that would necessarily get me a job offer. But I've certainly learned a lot from doing it, as I'm sure you have from starting this podcast, from technical stuff like editing and audio issues. I've never liked the sales side of things, so pitching guests and asking them to come on has been a new kind of skill that I've gotten to practice
Yeah.
that I wouldn't have had otherwise, and just meeting new people and all of that. So I think it's not only about am I more hireable by doing this kind of project,
Yeah.
but also do I feel more fulfilled?
Yeah.
Do I have other interests? Like I go to the gym, sure, I go to my party or a friend's house, or
Yeah.
I have some other activities, but it's a little bit different when you're creating something other than just consuming something.
And Hazel, we were just talking about this, right? Like the conversation that we have been having on like these podcasts, you know, we are quite early, right? So we're definitely not monetizing in any way.
Correct.
You know, your side hustles or your side projects, they should be a form of enjoyment, right? Yeah.
I think just riding on what you said, right, Nicholas, I can resonate a lot. I'm also at a stage where I never imagined myself to do more than what I'm doing right now, which means it's a very old school thinking of saying, before I was an entrepreneur, I was also a head of marketing of some TV network. I've been doing that all my life, right? So I'm quite happy with my job. It's like, okay, I'm going to do this until I retire. So I've never imagined today I'm sitting here thinking about, actually, who am I? So beside being a marketeer of X many years, now I have experience running businesses for 7 years, and I'm still not satisfied. So recently a friend asked me, why are you so busy? Are you okay? Do you need a rest? I'm like, yeah, I seem to be busy, but I'm happy busy. You know what I mean? When I say happy busy, it's really discovering, in my case, discovering what my other passion is. So like you said, you know, so for me, showing up on LinkedIn, it's not for the purpose of will people notice me? You know, am I a thought leader? If that comes through, great. You know, would people want to hire me? Those things were never my reason for showing up. For me, it's very simple. It's because I feel like at my age, whatever I've been through, these are experiences, stories which I want to share, right? So that's one. Podcast, it's because I've attended her and then I got hooked to it and I was like, oh, this is really great. You know, this conversation I really enjoy. Shall we do more, right? That's how we started. Again, every Friday when we do this recording, it's a great way of finishing off the week. And every guest, I feel like I'm learning so much. You know, if I haven't had this podcast, I wouldn't have met you. I wouldn't have known all this story. I might have read your newsletter. But it's very different, right?
Yeah.
So through all this, to me, it's also a form of connection, deep relationship building in a very different way. So it sort of fulfilled us on the other aspects beyond just a job per se.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm happy that you found this. I'm happy for myself that I found this.
I mean, actually, the only reason why I got to do what I'm doing now is really through starting a side hustle. I think it's like saying yes. At first, it's always very daunting, right? But to be able to do work that you enjoy and finding fulfillment of it, I think you can't really replace it with anything, even if you don't monetize.
I think one theme you guys have touched on before is, as marketers, we're very good at making other people look good, but are we doing enough to make ourselves look good?
Correct.
Thanks for watching the first episode.
But I think it's really important, and it starts internally within your own company, especially if you're an MNC or a bigger company. In Asia, we're often like the smallest region and farthest away time zone, and we get left behind. We're not in all of the town halls and all of the meetings because it's at 1 a.m. our time or something like that. Learning to be visible internally, make sure that the leadership knows you're doing good work. If you're happy and you want to have a career in marketing, that's the first step. And then if you decide you want to go beyond that and build something else, I think that's great for marketers. But if you don't, that's okay too.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, as long as you're happy and fulfilled. I mean, I would say the first 10 years of my career, I was focused on getting better at my job.
My job, yeah.
And it wouldn't have made sense for me to be writing about marketing when I'd only been in the industry for 3 years. But there's plenty of other things I could have done. I didn't at that time, but if I was mentoring a younger person, I might tell them, if you have a passion for whether it's video games or golf or anything, you know, go and practice shooting some YouTube videos and learn another skill of
You know,
editing.
earlier you also mentioned, right, like being able to show up internally within your team, right? Especially if you work in like a global company. Would you say being very present online, having all these side projects, have made you shown up in a way to your management as well? Like they start taking notice, hey, this is who Nicholas is, besides the person that I see every day at work.
Yes, for sure. And it's hard to say. I have a very good team, leadership all the way on up. We connect on a personal level as well. There's a lot of young parents on the team. There's a lot of people who we have a good connection. And so that's great. I would say even in the past when I used to work at really, really big company with 20,000 employees or something like that, right? So many of the leadership, they had no idea who I was, but you can comment on their post. Again, whether that's something you're comfortable with or whether put your foot in your mouth is another story. But it's, you know, the online space is one way to do that.
How long have you been doing this podcast?
It'll be my first anniversary next week.
Wow, 1 year!
Oh, congratulations!
And have you ever thought about giving up? Because it's very tiring, right? Keep it going.
I took a little break after the first, I think, 3 or 4 4 months, but I enjoyed doing a lot. So I was very busy at work, and still my first priority is my full-time job,
Yeah.
for sure.
You're quite clear on that.
Yeah, so if something is, if it can be done, then that's fine. I don't have a huge audience at this point that's going to be dying to hear the next episode. It's still in the building phase. So it's not the end of the world. I think that's another thing I want to mention. Like, if you're going to start something, like, as marketers, we lean towards being perfectionists.
Yeah.
Like, we'll notice every little
yeah.
detail,
I know.
something is wrong with the
Correct.
typography,
Yes.
or it's not quite aligned
Correct.
and all that sort of
Very
thing.
familiar typography.
We've been talking a lot about that recently. Yeah.
We're hard on ourselves, and we're the only ones who notice. I tell my wife that as well. Like, she's, this version better, or is this version better? Actually, it's like 2% different. So whichever one you choose, it's going to be fine. Sometimes we can be hard on ourselves and afraid of starting something or trying something because it's not perfect, and we're waiting to have that perfect thing. But actually, just getting
do
the
it.
momentum and going is better.
So would you say that everyone who has like a full-time job, they should be pursuing some of these side projects, making themselves more visible in some way?
I wouldn't say everyone. I would say if they enjoy it, like, don't do something you don't enjoy. I don't think it all has to look the same at all. Like, people could be doing something completely offline, completely unrelated to their careers and their work, and they still could be, first of all, spending their time in a way that they enjoy outside of their full-time job. But second, building relationships with people, learning about different topics. I don't think everything has to relate back to career advancement or what you're doing. Like, for me, for many years, my biggest activity outside of work was the gym. So I've been doing jiu-jitsu for 8 years now, and it's a grappling sport, so you're very close to people, right? So it's not like going to Anytime Fitness and just working out and then leaving. You build relationships with these people, and as somebody who didn't come from Singapore, it was a great way for me to meet people from all walks of life, all ages, all different fields of work, and that was the community I had for a long time. And then it's been branching out from there.
So really finding something that you enjoy.
I feel like if you find something that you like, then no one needs to push you. Some parts of your body is like, it's okay, I can do this. No matter how tired I am, I'm more willing to commit to it. I feel like that point of saying, something that you like, it's important to kickstart and to have that longevity, right? You don't want to start something and you're like, okay, 3 weeks or 4 weeks down the road, I'm not doing it. That kind of defeat the purpose. But coming back to your question, Crystal, I think today, compared to say 5 or 10 years ago, it's almost like a necessity to the word personal branding, future proofing, because layoff can happen anytime. Even if you're an entrepreneur, you could have closed your business. Anything could happen, basically, right? So it's almost like safeguarding yourself with a plan B and not wait until that thing happened, right? So for example, if you're head of marketing or you're a marketing manager, let's say you enjoy yoga a lot. Do you want to invest more time in that space? Become a yoga teacher, run retreat. That's also networking. That's also visibility. But it has nothing to do with your day job as a marketeer. My take, if I have to answer that question, is that it's now almost like a must do. Using the word must, I'm very careful here. But in my opinion, I would say it's definitely worth considering. Start thinking at least. What else am I good at? What else do I enjoy doing beyond just my full-time job?
Yeah, and there's this taxi driver who's blowing up on YouTube. He used to be an entrepreneur. I think he had like a finance or accounting firm.
Okay.
Right, so he had closed the business, I think, right after COVID. He has been gaming a lot. And then one day his wife just bought him a camera and said, why don't you just start sharing your life on YouTube? Make some use of your time, right? Apart from like driving the taxi, spend some time to record some videos. So he started to do that. He started to reflect on his journey, having to start a business, having to shut down the business and then driving a taxi, finding like fulfillment in life after that. And he's been blowing up on YouTube. I think it's called Lazy Cabbie. Yeah, so I mean, interesting that topic to bring up. Yeah.
Lazy Cabbie, if you're watching this, plugging for you.
I would add on to that, like, I think that was a great example. It could be completely unrelated, teaching yoga or anything like that. But if you do feel the desire to build a personal brand, then don't be afraid, just start. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be a big production. It doesn't have to be the next Gary Vaynerchuk. Just start first and you'll figure it out as you go.
I think maybe the difficulty in doing that is that people have expectations, right? If I start this, then I should see this amount of success in how long? When they do, then they set themselves up for disappointment and failure.
And also maybe worry, like how would people see me? What would my colleague think of me? What would my neighbor? What if they see my video? What's going to happen tomorrow when I meet that person? These are all real issues, but I guess for us, all three of us have our own personal branding now. It's really going back in time and saying, so how do you do that? For me, to answer that question, right? It's really saying, just be yourself. probably I passed that stage of worrying too much of what people think of me. It comes with age. Then you wake up one morning and you're like, doesn't matter. Just show up, do it, and then see where it brings you. So it's really following that path of saying, let it be. That's for me. What about you guys?
For me, I'm not somebody that often overthinks. If I want to do something, I just do it. Then I'll
No need to think twice.
Regret later, I'll say sorry later.
Okay, that's a good approach.
Yeah. What about you?
I mean, people care a lot less about other people than you think. They have their own problems and their own lives that they're dealing with. The things that we remember in our head that we're embarrassed about, the other person has completely forgotten about. They never thought about it again since it happened. If it's something you want to do, just go for it.
So Nicholas, what's the difference between going for networking events and having your own podcast, where you get to have conversations with guests and you get to network with them as well?
Like, for example, we knew each other from a business. We had been in connection for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And so we were connected on LinkedIn, and I knew you and I'd see your posts. And I approached you a couple of times. It didn't work out from a business perspective. But after I started the podcast, I thought, oh, this is a very interesting story that I'd like to share. And so that was an opportunity to talk to you more in depth. Now here I am on your podcast a year later, right?
Yes.
So I don't think that people should necessarily start a podcast because they want to network. Like, you think about on YouTube or influencer space, on TikTok, like, what are the cool posts and what are the influencers doing? They do collabs, right? Like, they go and do videos with each other. And if you're a fan of these two different people, you're really excited when they get together and do something together. So I don't think it's a replacement for networking, or you should do it because you want to network, but I believe that it's like the next level of networking. And not just podcasts, but doing interesting projects and being as part of a community, any sort of community that you are actually spending time together and it's not that superficial level.
Yeah, I think podcasting is very different from like when you go into like a big networking event because of the depth of the conversations that you can have with the person. And like you mentioned that collab part, right, where influencers collab on content pieces. When we put out like a post or a video, we actually leverage on the other person's network. Like, for example, your friends, colleagues would be watching this. Yeah, so I think that's the benefits. Thank you everyone for watching this podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you like this episode, please remember to like, share and subscribe. We'll see you in the next one.